Welcome to Skullfest 2018. Make some noise. Woo! At Skullfest every year, which is a party I throw at my house to try to get people together, talking. I love walking in and out of rooms, seeing people having their own conversations, and it's a beautiful thing to me. But I want to have a discussion, but I'd like to introduce some of the crews that are here. So Shattercast Uncut is in the house today. A portion of Toy Detox is in the house today.
Are you still on that show?
Hashtag where's Greg?
Nerve Rage Radio's in the building today. Woo! The man behind the most successful element of the cool table is part of Nerve Rage. He's here today. And 90% of the people that follow him have no idea what the fuck the cool table is. The whole crew of one show, which I owe more than I should at this point, is in the house today, breaking the mold. Woo! Yeah! We even have a few representatives from other shows that haven't been here in the past. Building up to it is in the house today. Yeah! We do have somebody from Fresh Communications coming, but they're coming later. They're having a nice day at the Inner Harbor, so they might have a nice day on the front porch for the rest of the night. And we have...
Stasis lock?
Yeah!
I'll take it.
Beer Voltage 40K is present as always.
Haven't recorded an episode in all year, no big deal.
Yeah, make them wait. Like a classy lady. Hey, it's Plastic Fanatics also now.
Yeah.
Woo! And we have a small gang known as Enter the Realm in the building today. Part of the Realm of Collectors, which is a larger conglomerate. Okay.
We did it. It's over. Let's move on. All right.
With that being said, today we're going to be talking about, is it okay to have a Transformer that doesn't transform? Because I do feel like it is the new hot topic.
Hey, listen, Joe's already triggered, so please don't argue with him.
Whose fault is that?
Joe's the one who told me I needed that jazz staff.
No, I said you don't.
Okay.
I said
thought
no.
you were on the phone saying you
remember
did.
he called me up live on the show, and then I got in trouble because I was arguing with him in front of people?
Yeah, because you're not supposed to.
realize.
Because no, the rule is if you're a close friend of mine, you don't argue with me in public. It makes me look bad. But keep that behind closed doors. To me, Transformers it's not a verb. It's a noun. And if you are a character, part of that universe, and I know that character, and I can place meaning upon that character as part of that franchise and part of that brand, if it transforms, that's cool, it's an added bonus to something, but just because it doesn't transform, it doesn't take away from the validity of something. That Flame Stories Drift is without a doubt the best Transformer that I personally have ever looked at, and I've looked at a lot. Just because it doesn't transform, it still says Transformers on the box. If you don't think it's a Transformer, you can look at the box, and there's a little TM next to it. That means trademark. That means it's actually really a Transformer. That's what that means. They put that on there to let you know, in terms of advertising, what that means.
Say they made a really nice Spike, but it has Transformers on the box. Does that make Spike a Transformer?
It makes Spike part of the Transformers brand. Let's start with Joe, because I know that Joe is adamant, and he's sitting on the floor, which always makes me feel like I have white privilege.
This is my corner. I know where I'm supposed to be. I mean, it's Transformer in name, but like it also based on what your interest is in Transformers. Like if it doesn't transform to me, I have zero. I mean, if it doesn't transform, it has zero interest to me. Like part of the charm of Transformers is that they transform.
What about Quintessons?
I don't care about Quintessons.
Okay, fair enough.
It'd be like a Luke Skywalker toy with lightsaber wielding action, no lightsaber.
Yeah, exactly.
This Drift is mainly known from the comics. I can't even remember when he did transform in the comics. I'm sure he did, but I can't remember it. He spends 90% of him, like in the comics, as the robot. So is it more important to get that right than it is to get an alt mode?
One of the things is I have the Flame Stories Drift, and it's great. It's a great display piece. But I enjoy kind of both. I like having that display quality, but I also like knowing that a figure can't transform. So it's cool to have a really good display piece, and then it's cool to have one that, you know, we've been messing with the MMC drift upstairs, and it's cool to have one that you can flip back and forth, but then it's also cool to have one that's you know, intricately detailed, has all this crazy engineering in the legs. I think there's a place for both in your collection. I don't think
I agree.
I don't think it makes it not a transformer.
So we all have masterpiece transformers, except Bricks has a bunch of Beast Wars that no one cares about. We all
Deluxe is right here, man.
we all Deluxe has that nobody cares about. Deluxe has transformer toys that the people who made them want to forget. We all know that a lot of them have limitations, and that a lot of those limitations are caused by the transformations. So the cat and mouse of what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to let go? I'm gonna hear from Gary. Now, for those who don't know, Gary recently inherited something recently. He inherited a stay-at-home wife.
Oh, I did.
So, how long did she work at Toys R Us?
She did not work.
What are your thoughts?
So I think it's about what you want to get out of it. So I'll use this analogy. I can buy a 5-liter Mustang and I can drive it at 100 miles an hour and it's a sports car. I can buy the same car and drive it at 40 miles an hour. It's still a sports car. It doesn't matter. It's what I'm getting out of it and what the enjoyment is to me owning it. Do I like to wash and wax it in my driveway every day and take it to parking lots and show it off, or do I actually drive it for what it's built for? So for me, look, I have the Flames Toys Drift as well. I look at all these beautiful Hot Toys figures behind you. Yeah, they don't fit into a vehicle.
Figures, not dolls. Figures.
Collectibles. But I personally, I realized myself, as much as a kid transforming them was fun with the simplicity, I don't have the time or the energy to do that on a regular basis. So I'd rather have an awesome looking representation that I can manipulate, pose, look at, enjoy. I would spend money on that in a second and get rid of everything that transformed.
By round of applause, who is constantly transforming and manipulating their transformers from car to vehicle? I mean, from car to robot. And who does not?
No.
So to me, it sounds like 75-25.
I think based on this drift and looking at the Tarn that's coming, I would be much more likely to get back in on something like these than I would be on the Masterpiece figures themselves. Because I don't transform them. Even when I got them, I never, especially towards the end, I opened it, became in bot mode, went right onto the shelf.
Yeah.
It's cool to have, you know, the perfect representation of your favorite characters and all that stuff. But I guess, you know, it's just a matter of taste. Being a very hands-on type of person, I like to, you know, pop my bots apart and transform them and stuff.
You know,
I like having the option. I like having them both.
You also will make strange purchases choices. Like, you'll be like, I'm only gonna buy that Astra train if I can put the Blitzwing arms on it.
Yeah, I have to have that. I don't know why. I have to have that.
So like, I'm not sure like the percentage that you take up.
I get.
MP Collector. I'm very excited because MP Collector came for a party and he finally untucked his shirt. And he undid both buttons.
I think my thoughts on it are kind of mixed. On the one hand, I collect Transformers because I enjoy transforming them, and probably the most enjoyment that I get out of MP Transformers is kind of looking at the engineering and kind of comparing the alt mode and the bot mode, and kind of just thinking about what decisions the designer must have made and what sacrifices they made in both modes to make the whole thing work. And you don't really get that out of a non-transforming figure. But at the same time, you know, that Flame Toys Drift, the engineering in that is amazing. And I think I get the same good feels kind of looking at that and seeing how the designer figured out how to articulate different pieces and make hinges work and stuff like that. So I don't know, I think my thoughts are evolving.
What I find as a turnoff is that people saying that it's almost invalid.
Right.
You know, like if I went through these effing comments and read you, just how many people were but there's also that question, and it's not about people in the comments. I'm sure that you're all great, but like when you get that much pushback, right? I have to ask myself how, because that toy outpriced me. That's why I didn't get it, right? But I think that toy also outclassed people. I think it outclassed and it outprices people. It depends on the person. And I think that some people find that almost offensive.
You and I have had conversations, Bobby, and I was actually just talking to internet personality Justin L had lunch about this. I just have a toe left in Transformers. I moved on to other things. But I think to keep the interest of some people, possibly myself, that have basically finished their Masterpiece collection, if they made the Flame Toys Drift style in, I think, the G1 characters that some of us are probably more passionate about than a comic book character that, like, I don't know who that is. It's a cool toy, don't get me wrong, but I don't know who that is. So if they made a cup, for example,
right,
a superposable version, I'd be all over that. Now, you know, like Justin and I were talking at lunch, and I presented this. If they made an RC that scaled with your fans' toys, that didn't transform but looked the part, is that your RC?
Would it have been better than what we got? I say that having not touched it yet.
It also depends on the character too, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys can tell me what you think about this. As far as ones that you will display in alt mode, triple changers, ones that have alt modes that you love, you gotta have, it's one thing. But the tapes to me, yeah, Dinobots.
Yeah.
The tapes to me, are you gonna put even the MMC ones on the shelf in tape mode? I would rather have the robot.
Would it have been more beneficial to just have them straight to robot?
I think they could do so much more with them if they didn't have to worry about the transformation. On those, even the Megatron. If you give me the little Megatron gun, I don't need the big one for the most part.
It doesn't work. You're supposed to fit in Starscream's hand.
Right.
I said, look at some of the source material too, like the comic books right now, Lost Light, or what was it before Lost Light?
More Than Meets the Eye.
More Than Meets the Eye. You don't even know what half of them transformed into because they never transformed.
Exactly.
It just wasn't important.
Because what the ability of the robots can do is not as important as who the robots are in terms of character and how those characters play a part in the story.
Or their personality.
Yeah. I think even as a kid, I never fell in love with the Transformer because of what it turned into. I just liked the characters. I liked the story. It was cool that they transformed. It was like an added bonus. But I think I would have been in.
It was the hook.
Yeah, I think it was the gimmick.
Yeah.
But I think I would have been in regardless because just I dug the way they looked and acted amongst each other.
How much detail will we sacrifice for the transformation itself?
How much detail do we sacrifice for the transformation?
There's always some. It has to be.
It's the whole that line from Jurassic Park that Ian Malcolm says. It's you were so busy to think whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think whether you should. But I think with Transformers, we got to go back and think back to why we fell in love with the franchise. It was the fact that it could. And that was why I fell in love with Masterpiece, is that they had evolved. They were, you know, I've been a longtime fan since Beast Wars, and the Beast Wars introduced a whole lot of articulation. And when Masterpiece...
He was going so well at his point.
I know, he was so good.
I know, I'm not heathen like Chris. Keep going, Zero. I know. So, you know, regardless of what you think about Beast Wars or not, it introduced articulation. And then we got Binaltech and we got Masterpiece. And Masterpiece introduced the engineering and articulation. And even though there have been sacrifices, the fact of the matter is, it still can.
Where's somebody that's going to divide the room in half and start war?
Air horn ready.
Yeah, that's true. I gotta get the air one ready. If you're gonna give me something that's straight G1, I kind of think I'll be interested. Drift, I don't care for. Tarn, I couldn't care less. But like you were saying, if they did a more G1 straight tune looking, or you know, give me a Megatron that's fully posable, I'll probably nibble on it. I'll bite.
And a dust nibble is wild.
Yeah. $3.99 though? No. But you know, like $200 price range, I'll try it out.
The price should go down, right, for G1 stuff, because G1 stuff, if you want to do tune accurate, it's not like Drift.
I agree.
It's
I
very
agree. If
plain.
you're doing G1 tune accurate,
It's
the
very
price
plain.
should be lower than what it is for Drift.
But then you also lose all the interesting aspect, all the interesting articulation and engineering because it's so plain.
But can you make stuff move around and look cool in the elbow that you're not as tied to for G1?
I agree with Dust. A G1 tune accurate would be something I would want, but think about it. You can't do that. Get those, I mean, let's be honest, those bulbous shapes and have...
I got a bulbous shape for you.
Yeah, I bet you later on. And get that articulation out of it that you are getting out of the Drift.
You set the bar as a company. Like, that is your price point. You can't
That's fair.
You can't go backwards now.
But here's a question. Do you think third party, as they're running out of things to do, will take this bull by the horns and start making these highly articulated, non-transformable figures like Drift? Can you see fans' toys? Although
Who is 100% satisfied with X-Transbot's Cliff Jumper? Who is 100% satisfied with MMC Cliff Jumper? Who would buy a non-transforming Cliff Jumper that they were 100% satisfied with in robot mode? See, that's where I think things get fishy.
People that don't know, I collect doubles of everything, so one for
dumb, stupid,
one for alt mode and one for robot mode, and I would gladly switch out all the ones that are in robot for.
I would too.
Yeah, I would gladly switch out all the ones that are in robot mode for something like this Flames Toys.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
I would
gladly.
Hasbro, you want that license money. You want to take the Fans Toys money. Let somebody like Flames Toys roll with your G1 style. Because I would actually replace a lot of my masterpieces, especially the ones that suffer most because of the transformation. Like up until recently, Megatron. Maybe RC, don't know yet. I would replace those with stuff like Flames Toys is putting out, like the really highly detailed and articulated non-transforming figures.
You're from North Carolina, correct?
Yep.
Are jean shorts still common down there? Or?
Yes. I left my jacket at home.
What about the vest with some buttons?
It's not cold enough for my jacket.
I do like the allure to the new Flames Toys Transformers. I think they look great, but it's an added expense for me. And if I already have a rendition of the character that transforms, I'm just gonna let it be, let that rest. I'm not gonna go spend $200-300 just to get something that's better looking that I'm not so interested in anymore. I'd rather spend it on Hot Toys, stuff that I'm interested in. So,
were we asking the wrong question? Where a third party is going to be in 5 years? Should we have been asking where the collector is going to be in 5 years?
Yeah. Who would buy a combiner like this style?
I would.
Depends on the combiner. No, wait. Is it still turning into robots or no?
No, it's a combiner.
I would.
I don't know.
Yep.
But it's right. It's the right scale.
Yeah, and also there's no until they make a character that is this style that doesn't have a counterpart that doesn't transform by some company. I don't think it's a problem. You have options, and options are good.
I think the Combiner Wars question was actually a really good question, considering what we've gotten up until this point with TFC and some of the posability problems, especially with that Transform mission that came out that was just so disappointing. It looked amazing, but then you've got something like Toy World that comes out and blows it out of the water and shows you that you can do it with the transformations and still have the posability and still basically have your cake and eat it too.
Who would rather spend $500 on a TFC Abominus than $300 on a non-transforming Abominus?
But you can get a Zeta Combiner for $250, $300.
If they do Abominus.
I think they will.
I already love that one.
But I mean, wish in one hand. You're right.
I got you.
I don't know. That's a tough call because I can tell you, I have a lot of money invested in the TFC, and they at the very least owe me a drink.
I feel like what makes this a hot topic for discussion is that I feel like this is almost uncharted waters for Transformers. Like, we got Action Masters back in the day that didn't transform. Trash. Not talking about that. I think the only precedent we may have might be the Miles Toy stuff and Hot Toys Optimus that came out with those Starscream wings. And I feel like the look of that figure doesn't compare to the look of this Drift. I can appreciate that everybody might not know who this character is if they don't read the comic books and stuff. Uncharted Waters, I'm talking about as far as price point, it's a very expensive Transformer that doesn't transform. But I do agree with you that it's a Transformers character, it's a Transformers brand, and to me branding is important. So to me it is a Transformer, even though in the literal sense it does not transform. I think it's a good way to go. For somebody that wants a complete look, the articulation, I'm a big fan of articulation. I like to take pictures of action figures, I'm a big fan of that. So to me, this is a road I could see myself going down. And I understand $300 is not, it's
not chump change.
It's not a number that somebody could just be, hey, I'm gonna just buy this arbitrarily. You have to think about a purchase like that. But I think, once you get that piece in hand, it's worth it. And I think once you see the quality, a lot of people would change their minds.
It was the price that kept me out of it, but once I reviewed the figure, I couldn't say it wasn't worth it. Objectively, maybe it's still not worth it to me specifically, but I can't say I don't see where the 300 went.
If it doesn't have the engineering to transform, it shouldn't cost more than one that does have the engineering to transform, I think. And maybe it's because it's licensed, the Flame Toys one.
Okay, so
but I'd like to see going forward. Me, I've pretty much got out of Transformers. I'm into other cool robots I like, and I'm going into it for the size and the price point and the articulation.
But I feel like there's more
What
to
does
consider.
mine?
There's more to consider than that, though, because there's paints, there's materials,
Yeah, man.
there's the articulation, the parts that are a piece of that, the
Yeah.
accessories.
The parts count, I think, is higher than most transforming figures, which is where the most of the price comes from.
I've owned or handled almost every third party. I've never in my entire life, even with all of y'all, I've never touched a Hot Toys. I've never touched a 3A. I've never touched a Sentinel figure. And I got that Drift in. It's a non-transforming Transformer. I opened it in the box. I held it in my hand, and like I could say without a doubt that this is the most engineered, best detailed, best painted toy I've ever held in my hands. And that's their first one. I mean, not for the company. They made a lot of other nice things.
Right, but they're first of this line.
And like, it changed the way I look at the figures. Like, I could probably replace the Masterpiece with stuff like that.
Deluxe, you're probably the biggest Transformer collection in the room.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about this?
It's one of the most beautiful figures I've ever held in my hands, except for me. It's like I said, it's perfect. I mean, there's nothing, you know, with accessories. The paint is not chipping off like Fans Toys does.
Oh, here we go.
And
Not for nothing.
I want a Transformer to transform, but if it does what that does, it's just perfect. The posability, it's just fun to mess around with.
I mean, so like in the end, I don't really care. I mean, if you like it, then that's fine. You know, it's all about what you really like. But for me, like, I don't follow the comics. Like, Drift, I don't give a crap about Drift, anything like that. To me, going
For what
back
it's worth,
here,
Drift always says nice things about you.
that's okay. He can love me, I don't have to love him, right? But, like, the thing that Masterpiece was to me is, like, when you looked at these toys as a kid in front of you, because, like, the cartoon was cool, but really as a kid, I cared about the toys more than the cartoon. And I had Optimus that went from cool-looking truck to kind of like, robot back in the 80s, But now it's like, okay, MP10 looks like an actual semi and looks like a robot, and like, how did you do that with the engineering? And like, MP line is like a perfect example of a lot of that. Like, you still see, like, there are things that need to be done, but like, the Make Toys Jazz, like, how did you make the robot look so much like it came out of the screen, but still make the car look like the actual Porsche, So, I mean, for me, personally, like, not following, any comics or anything right now, like, I know Optimus Prime, I love Optimus Prime, but, like, I don't care about Optimus Prime as a character as much as I do the truck to the robot thing for me.
That's why I feel it's weird that they started with Tarn and Drift. Like, they didn't go the G1 route and go with the old reliables, so it's
Because
kind
I
of weird
think
for them
they
to
didn't
start
transform as much in the comic.
Right.
So like you kind of let it go.
Raul, you got anything?
Follow me.
I would be very open to non-transforming Transformers if they came as model kits.
Well, that's happening.
Flame
Toys is doing model kits.
Is doing model kits.
Do we know the price for any of those?
$36. They're pretty cheap.
How much?
$36.
Yeah.
$36.
Yeah.
Ring, are you in
It was you.
for a $36 non-transforming model kit option?
Oh, yeah.
Not that one that they showed us, but if you like G1, perhaps.
And for a price point like that I think you could get a figure that's so articulated and you could have fun with it. Like, I get it, Transformers should transform, but like I said, the branding is important, and I don't think that it has to be a slave to transformations. You have those figures already. You could transform those figures. You got Masterpiece, you got Chug. If you want Transformers that transform, there's plenty.
So it's another option.
This is another option for collectors, and I think options are good and choices are good.
I agree.
Pretty much, I kind of grew up. I'm an engineer by heart, so I kind of like messing with them, transforming them. Personally, I'd rather just buy it if it actually transforms, but some of the statues I actually wouldn't mind actually buying. I kind of see the appeal to it, so I would actually agree with both sides actually.
I ain't got nothing.
Okay. Let's make some noise. It's fine. I'm gonna dress you as one.
If it looks good on the shelf and I can set it up the way that I want it to look, I don't mind if it doesn't transform.
You know what? She's a savage. Let me tell you. Transformers should transform, okay? And
There's no way you're gonna tell me that it can't make a transformer that can transform and look good and be artistic. We've seen it, plenty of them.
I don't care if it doesn't transform. It's still a transformer. That's that. It's a brand. It doesn't matter if it doesn't transform. Character. But
deep in there.
when it comes to something like that, if it's going to be that expensive, I don't care how well it moves. I would like a bit more. I'd rather spend another $200 and get something that transforms and looks as good.
It's divided in the middle. So basically, what you love Transformers, what they do or what they are. And I feel like, you know, I specifically is what they are. Like, you know, I love Transformers for what they are, not what they do. So I'm in that perspective. So if I can have a figure or an Optimus Prime, and it's a statue doesn't transform, or just a action figure that doesn't transform, I'm gonna love Optimus Prime for what he is. It's Optimus Prime, the character, and that's what I love.
Yeah,
and the same thing. Just think about it. When you have a friend, do you like a friend because of what he does for you?
That's what Bobby
he
is.
Dude, you are exposed.
Those lights didn't put themselves up.
Look, there's a lot of things in this basement that wouldn't be where they are without Joe. I'll just say that.
Get him, hey, Joe.
Give it up for Joe.
One man.
And I still
Hey, Joe.
And I owe this dude like $160. He's never said a word. And I'm not going to either. Lastly, out of respect, out of being, you know, things have changed over the last couple hundred years. But as a courtesy, does the King of England have anything he'd like to add?
No.
It's time to shine. Do it.
It's just a transformer. I don't care. It's a toy. I can't be asked to argue over it. Just it looks nice.
Does the swan on your head have anything it wants to say?
No, let's keep this big out of it.
All right. Nerd Rage Radio will have bonus content that we're going to be putting out.
Bonus track.
We're going to have a ongoing thing recording in that room, so the room is bugged. If you're going to talk shit about somebody that you'd rather not get out, talk shit about them upstairs. But if you want to sit down with anybody and have a conversation about anything, it doesn't matter. The room will be on in there. The mics will be on. Sit down, talk. We'll cut it all together so there's not dry space. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming. Skullfest 2018. Feel free. We'll get back to partying, eating, mind you, all that.